This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
Welcome to Sound Up. I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's show, will Rigby and Peter Holsapple of the DBs join to discuss their first tour with original members in 12 years, plus music news on Eminem, Bon Jovi, the Latin Billboard Awards, and more.
And we will be updating you on the standings of our first random Sound Up Friday Twitter poll. We asked you which band you would like to hear new music from. Your choices were No Doubt, The Cure, REM, or Talking Heads.
So that question, what band do you want to hear new music from, is also going to be the topic for our show taping on Wednesday. You can be a part of that show. Go to sounduppod.com, sounduppod.com, and find out how you can join in. Up first, here on Sound Up, the legendary power pop band, the DBs, are reissuing their debut album, Stands for Decibels, and are planning their first tour with original members in 12 years. Founding members Will Rigby and Peter Holsapple join us here on Sound Up. They're going to break it all down for us. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Lovely to welcome you guys back. Unsuspecting. I didn't see that one coming.
So I've got to ask first, we were talking about it before the show. This reissuing of Stands for Decibels is the first ever US vinyl release of this album. So when this came out in the 80s and I was listening to it with my friends in high school, that would have been an import we were listening to. What's the story on how this came out and how it's coming out now?
If it was on vinyl, it was an import.
Huh.
I have no recollection of that.
We were extremely fortunate to have disc jockeys at colleges that would bring their import copies that they paid God knows how much for and play them, because they were never released until IRS Records put them out after the band had broken up in '89.
On CD only.
Yes.
On CD only. Extra credit, extra respect to my friend Scott in high school then, because he was the one who bought it.
Vinyl.
Didn't realize he had to put out the import dollars to pick that up. So.
Oh, yeah. I worked in a record store in New York City, and you had no idea how much to charge for imports. You know, it really depended on the distributor that you got them from. And, you know, they could be anywhere from $11.99 to $21.99. So you really had to get the trust of your customers. Sell them a couple of $4 XTC or Squeeze records and say, if you like that, take my word for it.
How did you guys feel about that? I mean, look, it was a magic time. CDs, brand new. Oh my God, cool, new technology. But would you have wanted that record to come out on vinyl? I mean, that's the way many of us were listening to music back in the old days.
Well, sure, we wanted it to come out in the United States. We didn't find a label that wanted to put it out.
I was hoping that wasn't the answer, but it's kind of hard to imagine, again, especially because of that era. It seems like bands like the DBs, that A&R people all over the country were looking for guys like you. I don't understand what the problem would be.
If we knew, we would know.
I know. You'd be, of course. You wouldn't be reissuing your debut again.
So tell me, going back to that time, I guess, I think so much about the North Carolina part of your story, of that's where you guys come from. That's where you guys are, still there. But that record was done, and those are, the band really was first playing out in New York City in the late 70s. Did you feel a part of that 70s, still sort of first wave punk rock thing? I know that Richard Lloyd and, some of those guys worked with you on some of the early recordings. Did you feel sort of inside or outside what New York City was at that time?
Okay. Well, you're gesturing at me. So I think when we were playing in North Carolina in our formative years, and that's everywhere from like the Sunday after the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan up through the point that we were in New York, we're kind of honing our skills, but we also realized that it was going to be difficult to do original music in North Carolina at that point. We had friends like Don Dixon and Mitch Easter who played in bands that did a considerable amount of original music, but at the same time, they had to pack their sets with covers, a lot of covers, And we did too in our bands. I mean, I think we felt that we had a sort of an obligation to play the songs that we really liked for people. So we didn't really play a lot of Marshall Tucker. We didn't play a lot of Allman Brothers because there were plenty of bands doing that. But we would play stuff by Spooky Tooth. We'd play stuff by Family. We'd play stuff by The Move. We'd play stuff by the Flamin' Groovies. And, it was a sort of a kind of a vague kind of musicologist aspect to things. So when we moved to New York, we were fortunate that we had learned our craft. And we got there, I always sort of date my arrival in New York as 2 weeks after television played their final shows at the Bottom Line. So I see us as sort of a second wave of bands, groups like the Bush Tetras, the Raye Beats, the Bongos, friends of ours like that. The club days of the Talking Heads and the Ramones were pretty much over by then.
But did it feel like, was there still that sense of rock and roll band community in New York City? I mean, you're saying it's with those, and some of that, I guess, gets you into New Jersey too. Some of the bands you're talking about, did it still feel like a moment?
It sort of still felt like a smallish community to me, but the original famous bands from CBGBs had moved on. We weren't part of that, but it was still a kind of a community. Yeah.
Did that, just in terms of where the music was, I mean, did it inform what became known as sort of power pop, but the sound of what the DBs were doing, which was not, was not a punk thing, was not a new wave thing in terms of more synthy or more whatever it was. The New York City and North Carolina, Southern and Northern thing, was that all in play in what the early songs were? Peter, you were saying, I mean, when you talk about Flamin' Groovies or talk about coming up on those bands, that's where a lot of this stuff comes from, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we just happened to be in New York playing our music. I mean, the stuff that we were writing, a lot of the songs that I came up to New York with, and I would assume some of the stuff that Chris came to New York with, was all formed in North Carolina originally, and from those various sources. Again, there were a lot of groups in New York at that point that were sort of, well, I just got a guitar and I'm going to hit these notes and this is going to be a song. And that's a great thing. It's a kind of it was like the DIY thing. We were already really good at our instruments, I think. We already knew how to write a song. We already knew how to arrange a song. So I feel as though we were fortunate that way, that we didn't have to go through all that sort of growing up in public, I mean, of course, every band has better songs than others and worse songs than others. And so, but the nice thing about having two songwriters in the band, I guess, is that we could sort of weed out the ones that didn't work as well. So is that answering your question?
Yes, sure.
And the stuff that went on in North Carolina, the bands that followed after we'd left, they were sort of independent of us. I mean, I think that there were a bunch of those guys we played with, like the guys in the Secret Service. But there were other bands that we'd left before they started getting going, honestly. So that whole, like the stuff that was on Moonlight Records, like the X-Teens and the Fabulous Knobs, groups like that, they really happened after we had left or were happening as we were leaving. And we just didn't really know about them as much until we'd come home and visit our parents.
What is it about today or what happened behind the scenes that now you guys are finally going to get to put this record out and together do dates again?
Well, the impetus to put it out is pretty much stems from Propeller Sound Recordings, the label, and they were incredibly enthusiastic. They already put out a collection of early DB's recordings from before the first album. And so they're pretty enthusiastic about the DBs, and they're also going to put out the second album in a few months. That was the impetus behind the record coming out, and the impetus behind the DBs playing some shows is the records are coming out.
Still got to go hawk some product? It's just like that?
Yeah.
But are you guys, I mean, obviously you've been in touch, but for this to happen, is there something really heartwarming about you guys getting on a stage together again?
You've done it every once in a while, right?
That's what I mean. But this is, you've got a product out and now you're back together and it's almost like a concerted effort, it seems. Do you feel like, oh, okay, maybe America's coming around to power pop again. It's our time.
What is
No.
No? Okay. All right. Moving on.
I think we're getting together to play these shows because this label has decided to put out the records. I mean, we're all doing other things. Chris is a very, very busy producer, and he works with a lot of artists. Gene works in New Jersey. Will and I both have got different stuff that we work on as well. It's always nice to get to hang with those guys because we grew up together. Will and I go back 60 years. And we speak the same language. And again, all those records and the bands that I mentioned before, we all listen to that stuff. So we have a musical heritage that we share. That's a really nice thing,
I'm totally psyched that we're all still healthy enough to do it.
Yeah.
How many bands can say that?
Yeah.
Well, all the original members of Manfred Mann are still alive, but they apparently don't like Manfred very much, so that's why they don't play together.
Between death and hating each other, how many bands can say that?
Yeah, one way or another.
True.
So what do you hear when you hear these songs? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm assuming you're not regularly sitting around listening to the first album, on your own time over the decades. But having to do it, I have to get the vinyl together and then now to go out and play them. Do you hear the associations with the time, or what do you hear in the music? What presents itself to you when you go back to this set of songs?
I haven't listened to this record. I haven't listened to the new masters or anything like that. I think it's probably been 20 years since I really listened to the first DB's records. Well, to any of the DB's records, honestly. I have to say that I'm grateful for having had a hand in that. I'm grateful for having made records that people really like a lot. I'm not sure what I relate to anymore because those were songs that I wrote when I was 23 or 25, and I'm 68 now. And it doesn't, I hope it speaks to somebody, and we'll certainly do our damnedest to get it across to people. But I don't know. I mean, it's a lovely exercise in nostalgia. And
Will, for you, does it take you to that time, or do you, is there something you hear in the songs, or what is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I don't want to say bittersweet, but there's like the nostalgia thing. First of all, I don't really trust the nostalgia. I think it's kind of a negative emotion, but really when I hear our records, I tend to hear like, wow, I wish that could have been better. But, I don't want to get into specifics, but I tend to hear the flaws as much as the strong points.
Man.
Hear that a lot from musicians. You're like, what I hear is what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard. You're really inside what you made, and it's hard to separate that. I mean, I think, honestly, especially because of the presence of our producers, Chris Stamey and Scott Litt, those first two records survive on an audio level because they're interesting to listen to. I think we tried to pack them full of ideas. We had a lot of ideas back then, and we tried to make sure that we would have records that would stand the test of time, that people could find interesting things about to listen to. And, here we go. It's 43 years later, and there'll be new records to young listeners or to old listeners who'd never heard us before. And hopefully a lot of stuff will just pop out of the speakers to them, and they'll say, okay, that's cool.
Are there things that you guys have been working on? Is there something new? Might you guys actually go back into the studio and record some new songs?
There's no plans to do that. There's a handful of tracks that have yet to see the light of day, but we'll have to see what happens with those.
Or ones that you could sort of pull out and buff up to put out, or are they like finished tracks? Or?
There's one on this set, right? There's one song that's a new thing on here, isn't that
well,
right?
that was a 45 that came out between the two albums. It's a song called Judy.
Yeah.
So it has been released, but I think what Will is talking about are tracks that we had recorded around the time of the last release in 2012, a record called Falling Off the Sky that Bar None Records released. And we cut a lot of songs with that. So those are the songs, I think, is what you're talking about, right, Will?
We actually recorded a couple of Kinks songs that haven't come out. We have a song that is sort of newly recorded, but it's a song that dates from the second album time period. That's a really good track. We're not really sure what to do with it.
Peter, you talked about people discovering these, maybe, newly discovering these as they come out now, but I'm going to ask you about the the influence, the impact of these, especially the first couple DBs records. I mean, Sounds for Decibels, Pitchfork said was one of the 100 best albums of the 80s, right? Was on that list. And when people talk about a lot of the sort of college rock stuff that emerges right in that, moving in, a little more into the 80s, obviously the connection to REM, the Athens stuff, the jangle pop, the Replacements to a degree, all of those things. Did you see an influence? Did you see something that the DBs did that even if the albums themselves didn't explode in the moment, there was something that got into the rock and roll culture over the next few years? Was that a thing that you felt?
Personally, I've never felt that way. I feel like to have influence, you have to have had reach. So it makes sense when people say, my band was influenced by REM. My band was influenced by Jane's Addiction. Something like that, because you could actually hear those songs on the radio. You could see them on MTV. And so they were accessible. As we pointed out, I mean, and you could say this about the entire recording career of the DBs, even that for the two records after Chris left. They just didn't get in the stores. They didn't get played on the radio. So I think that, in much the same way as we had to dig out these Move records and these Flamin' Groovies records and Spooky Tooth records, people would have had to have done some heavy digging, get out the backhoe to find these.
But other bands found them.
I can't think of too many.
You can't think of any, no.
No, I really can't, honestly. I think that they're more, again, I think that it's more, they're inclined, a group like REM has got their tentacles everywhere. And a group like the DBs really just sort of, we existed until we didn't, and we tried. It wasn't for lack of trying, but the fates kind of conspired. So it's hard to imagine anybody feeling like we influenced them. That's my take. Will may feel differently.
I have never listened to any record and said, wow, that sounds like the DBs. That's never happened to me.
Bad or good? Don't you?
I think it's like kind of academic whether or not somebody sounds like somebody else, because anybody any good's got their own sound.
Right.
Can I side note, because I know that you mentioned these covers that you guys did live, and you mentioned a couple of bands that are, I'm older than you guys, and in the 70s, The Move, one of my favorite bands of all time, and Family, you were covering those guys? I mean, the Family? Nobody knew Family here.
Oh, Will and I had a band in high school called Little Diesel, and we covered Good News, Bad News.
Oh, man.
And then Chris and I did a duo record, the second duo record that we did called Here and Now, and we covered My Friend the Sun on there. So, yeah, we love Family. Love Family.
And which Spooky Tooth did you cover? Which Spooky Tooth song?
Well,
Evil Woman. Come on.
No, and that's a Crow song anyway. So, but we if I may go deep on you there.
Yeah, you have. I'm schooled.
We loved Better By You better than me, and we certainly loved everything off of Last Puff. But Better By You was really sort of the gold standard in Winston-Salem. So many bands covered that in our high school days, and it's just a great riff,
God, it is funny to think of those as those were the covers that you had to play to win over audiences. I mean, that's, you said, you're not playing Skynyrd songs.
That's what I mean.
We chose to do that because, as I say, we loved those records. We had Live at the Fillmore East, of course, who didn't? But we certainly played Looking On and Message from the Country a lot more,
Oof. Spooky
2 a lot more, Teenage Head. I mean, we were playing Teenage Head when it was a new song.
Oof.
So we're that old.
Damn. Well, all of that schooling has served you well, I suppose, and I'm glad you're back.
I can't wait.
I can't wait too. And what is there something concrete you can point to now? Do you have dates lined up?
Dates are up, right?
So
yes.
What's happening next?
Well, there are 6 confirmed shows: Raleigh, DC, Philadelphia, Jersey City, Chicago, Minneapolis. That's all that's confirmed right now. There's probably going to be more, but I'm not going to mention any names until they're confirmed.
Okay. I haven't seen the dates that Alan has. When do they start?
September 7th, I believe, is the Raleigh show. That's the first one.
and they're playing that club. Mark, you and I went to see Nick Lowe play in Jersey City.
Oh, the Eagle Hall?
Yes.
Or something?
Yeah.
White Eagle Hall.
White Eagle Hall. Oh, man. The last time Alan and I were there, we were seeing Nick Lowe.
That's right.
Talk about power pop.
The right room.
It's funny.
But he's not really power pop anymore. He's kind of
fair enough.
Dad rock now,
yes.
right? Or
oh,
I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean not like yacht rock, dad rock. I mean like standards.
Yeah.
Or what he is trying to make into standards. The songwriting is different. Although I understand that when he plays with Los Straitjackets, he does kind of veer off into the Jesus of Cool stuff.
That was the stuff we saw. So
for sure.
Nice.
We got to let you out of here, but I have to ask, because we were just talking about this the other day, the notion of whatever power pop means. When you guys wrote a song and I know Big Brown Eyes, that song, as melodic, as accessible, that's a pure pop song, which I love. Did you have a sense of, we just wrote this could be a hit? Like the disparity between the sort of power pop, the melodicism and the, sort of the craftsmanship and the principle, and that they weren't big pop songs. Did you think that there was potential for that? Was there the dream of this could actually go be a thing that takes over the world? Or these were just trying to write the best songs you could write? Well,
as author of that song, I would say that I am always hoping that a song I write will have some kind of impact. That reach that we were talking about earlier in terms of influence, or in terms of, stepping up the bank account, a little bit, or just being on everybody's lips and their throat, they want to sing it. And, but I also understand that it's a total crapshoot. You're at the mercy of the machine and the labels and the publicists and stuff like that. So, ultimately, it is write the best song you can write. I think a song like Black and White, it's a great song. Groups like Bully have covered it. Megaphone covered it. That's a nice feeling. And, we've always gotten all of these reviews that start with, well, in a better world, the DBs would, be at the top of the charts.
Right.
And sorry, not a better world. We're in the world we got. And so all we can do is really just write the best songs and play as well as we can, arrange them, produce them, make them sound as good as we can. And then it's sort of up to the fates from there. Does that sort of answer the question?
That's exactly, yes. And that in a better world, the DVs would be is exactly what I'm asking about. Yeah.
Well, I would say that we wanted to have hits. We wanted to be on the radio. It's in the places where we did get on the radio, we were popular.
We have to hand it to WXRT in Chicago. They played the crap out of us, and it was really nice. It felt, it's that thing, I guess. I've never seen the movie, but people always refer to it, that thing you do when you drive into town and you hear the college radio station playing your song in advance of your show. It's really exciting. It really is. And you have to hope that other people are hearing it and feeling excited too.
Gentlemen, thank you for carving out some time. We're really excited. Will Rigby, Peter Holsapple, the DBs, look for this this brand new debut record on vinyl coming out here in the U.S. and those live dates.
Thank you for having us on your show.
You guys, it's our honor. We appreciate it. That first album, the reissue, is out now. So go and get it. When we return, we've got music news on Sound Up.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
True. All right, we are back. We always like to give you some music news, just little nuggets to chew on. And there's a couple of really cool things that went down. You may have heard about this. Bon Jovi did this surprise 5-song set in Nashville this past Friday. Rather intimate performance celebrating the grand opening. Oh my God, it's another bar. JVJ's is the new rooftop bar and restaurant owned by the one, the only John Bon Jovi. It also came on the day that Bon Jovi released their 16th studio album, Forever. I understand Morgan Wallen was there, but they kept the chairs away from him.
They just chained him up.
They chained the chairs down. It was a promo thing. He was ready because, just to call some attention.
He's on call.
He's on
That's
call.
how it works.
You need me to throw a chair? I'm happy to. I'll be there. The show was notable considering the lingering uncertainty that surrounds John Bon Jovi's voice. We talk about this all the time. He underwent vocal cord surgery. If you've seen the doc, then you know what we're talking about. He underwent vocal cord surgery in 2022, and he is on this sort of long road to recovery. He recently confirmed that he will be unable to tour in support of his new album,
right,
noting that he is more than capable of singing again, but that 2.5 hours a night, 4 nights a week would not be possible.
I mean, that's what's fascinating here is right on the heels of saying, I'm not going to be able to tour. He then got up and at least did this performance, I think, immediately to demonstrate, like, look, I can still do something. I just can't do, what a full Bon Jovi concert involves. So kind of interesting that those happened 2 days apart or whatever it was.
I'm wondering if he's going to, figure out some, not a hybrid tour, but, just ways for him to do that, to show up and do 30 minutes here and there, because if you saw the documentary again, I mean, there's nobody who has been working harder for this and who is more dedicated. He said it in the doc, 100% of 80% is not enough.
Whatever you think of Bon Jovi, whatever you think of the band or that guy or whatever it is, the one thing that is never in question is the work ethic, the ambition. Yeah. This is 100% commitment. So yeah, you're right. Will he figure out some other, there are some of these other artists recently, Roger Daltrey and some of these others who have been doing some performance and some Q&A,
right,
or different kinds of things. Now, that's not a band, that isn't a stadium band scale performance, but I don't see him saying, that's it, I'm not going on a stage again.
Yeah, I don't think, from what little we know of Bon Jovi, if he can walk, he's going to make it up on that stage again.
I agree.
Right? I mean, for whatever it is, whatever he did the other night, 5 songs, he does sound good. His voice sounds different than it did in the 80s, but he sounds good.
It does, but his voice on this record, and I have to check out that performance, sounds more like the Bon Jovi of old than it did pre-surgery.
Agreed.
When you go listen to that 2020 album, it was a very different, deeper, gravelly voice.
Yeah.
And this album too, I'm really enjoying, and it sounds like an album that you do want to hear live. It's very anthem kind of heavy, which is what, they're so good at. So I hope he figures it out.
It happens to be a really good record.
It really is.
Really personal stuff on there, some great stuff looking back. It's kind of the perfect record for a guy at this moment in his career, in the situation that he's in. I really think it's one of his best records.
Me too, and I feel like these songs would fit really well with a lot of the classics in a live setting.
For sure. Hey, I hope he figures it out.
While we're talking surprise performances, there was another one, and it's a surprise and not a surprise. The Live from Detroit, the concert at Michigan Central event happened to celebrate the grand reopening of Michigan Central Station in downtown Detroit. Performances from Diana Ross, Jack White, Big Sean, bunch of folks. The event was executive produced by Eminem and his longtime manager Paul Rosenberg, and Eminem did indeed turn up to do a 4-song performance, including the premiere of his new single Houdini, backed by the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and bringing out our man Jelly Roll to sing the hook on Sing for the Moment, the song that samples Dream On. He brought Trick out, local Detroit legend, to do Welcome to Detroit, and did the 2010 single Not Afraid, concluding with a fireworks display. Detroit concert was live streamed on Peacock. It aired on NBC over the weekend. And Michigan Central Station initially opened in 1913, closed in 1988, was acquired under new ownership in 2018, and has undergone a restoration that employed more than 3,000 workers. And for the grand reopening, big deal in Detroit, Eminem put this together. Shout out to our friend, Mark, if you remember, my friend Jonathan Azu, who we had on. He's a music manager and an activist. He was one of the actual producers of the event for this Detroit show. I had run into him a couple weeks ago, and he told me he was working on it. So extra credit to him for pulling off a great night. Diana Ross, man, to talk about Detroit royalty, that's what we're talking about.
That is so true. Can I just ask, what's your take on Eminem now?
I don't know. This is, if you've been following this, it's all really interesting. This new single, which I think is, kind of lazy. It's fine, but like at this point, do we need to do, I'll make a joke about Megan Thee Stallion getting shot because I know people will get, and there's this seems to be developing this really interesting generational divide right now of a lot of younger kids going, that's kind of weak, and not responding to the shock jock Eminem, while a lot of 40-year-olds are really into it. So it will be interesting to watch if Eminem becomes a heritage hip hop act, which he's never been. Yeah. And the numbers remain amazing. I mean, the song is breaking all the streaming records, and like all indications are that he remains the mega superstar, the biggest selling artist from 2000 to 2010. And then I think the second biggest selling artist from 2010 to 2020. When you line up the following and the stats around Eminem, they are still jaw-dropping. But this is, and he's gone through, there've been albums that people didn't like and didn't respond to. It's not he's had ups and downs, but there's an interesting generational, rift that's happening.
When has that ever happened before?
Well, that hasn't happened for him. Before it was always young people being like, throw bombs and light fires and stir up the shit. There's always been that support, but it's a different world. And it will be it'll be fascinating to watch, how Eminem plays in a 2020s, Gen Alpha universe.
I look to you for hip hop commentary because I like some of it, but I'm not as well versed as you are. So is there something that you could say that you could point to with, I don't know, not necessarily with this record, or maybe, with this new record, or the new, the latest M? Is there something that he's doing, something in the rhymes? What is it?
It's not the style.
Why are 20-year-olds not getting it?
Because I think they're like, you know what? Using Megan Thee Stallion getting shot as a punchline, not that cool.
Weak sauce.
Not that cool. And maybe different than when he was going after Fred Durst and Christina Aguilera and, all the things that put him on the map. When you're one of the biggest stars in the world for decades, is it punching down to go after a younger black woman who got shot? Is that, in the atmosphere that we live in, how is that going to fly? Right. And I can't imagine this isn't the thing that he hasn't been thinking about, but it's not a sure thing. There will certainly always be kids who will get off on the forbidden nature of it.
That was half of what the guy did. He was hysterical, and he would come up with these great lines, and
I can't be sure, but I think this first single's kind of a setup. I think based on what the album's called, I feel like he needed to remind people about the Slim Shady character before he goes out and totally destroys it. And I think that's what he's going to do.
Well, and it's it's the song, a lot of the song is going to blow up my career now, you know, but that's always kind of been the thing. So I don't know. It's early to tell. And then you see him being, the good civic son of Detroit doing this event and celebrating, a landmark piece of the resurgence of the city. So, that's not wearing the black hat.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah.
I will be interested.
One to watch.
Yeah. All right. What do we got? Oh, Latin Music Awards. Billboard Latin Music Awards happened over the weekend. Tears of Gratitude, Family, and Gloria Estefan. What a night. What a night. Produced by Telemundo, the show aired on Sunday night, and it honored revered icons of Latin music. Gloria Estefan, who won the Legend Award, the salsa legend La India Pioneer Award, the Mexican powerhouse Ana Barbera, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Lifetime Achievement, as well as Puerto Rican singer-songwriter Kenny Garcia, a Spirit of Change Award. I wasn't aware of all these other awards with the Latin Music Awards, the Spirit of Change Award.
That the continual growth around the awards, reflecting the continual growth around the genre, is moving into more and more things to deal with.
Mexican prodigy Angelina Aguilar, Colombian chart topper Kali Uchis.
How
about it?
Yep.
And this month's Billboard cover star, Camila Cabello, got the Global Impact Award.
The interesting thing to me is the one thing that's become notable, I know a lot of people noted it this year, was the absence of Latin presence at the Grammys. That there were no big nominations for Like that Peso Pluma song was not a Song of the Year contender, and some of the big breakout hits that have emerged out of the Latin category. And I wonder if there's a sense of like, well, there's other awards for that. Right.
Yeah.
That's, at what point does that become? It's almost like the argument, there was the point a few years ago, and happily this has tipped a little bit, where people were saying, let's bring back the male and female categories at the Grammys, because then at least some women would win Grammys. Right. And I wonder if there's now developing a little bit of, shouldn't those be big enough stars that they're just up for Grammys?
Right. We apparently can't count on you to nominate women, so...
Just interesting. So one more thing we wanted to get to, we were talking about this before the show. The Black Keys and managers Irving Azoff and Steve Moore have parted ways after the sudden cancellation of the band's North American arena tour. A rep for, and then when this story ran, I'm reading from Variety here, when this story ran, a rep for Azoff confirmed the split to Variety and called it an amicable parting. A rep for the group did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
Which doesn't exactly point towards amiable parting.
Well, and since then, what we got was a tweet from Pat Carney saying, quote, "We got fucked," and more details to follow. Oof. So I'm not, we're not calling this an amicable parting right now. And B, this is going to be crazy if they actually come out swinging against Irving Azoff.
Like one of the biggest moguls in the business.
Most powerful men in the business.
Yeah. And they probably went to Irving's because for whatever right or wrong reason, they wanted to up their game. They wanted to be with this massive guy who was, in fact, they said he is going to help us book better gigs and so on. Yeah,
in 2021, they'd always been managed by Q Prime, which is the company that manages Metallica and the Chili Peppers and, huge global superstars. They were out of the Nashville office. A guy named John Peets was their manager from, not from day one, but from a long time, and really built them up. And, hindsight is easy here, but they left in 2021. And then this new album is their worst selling album in a long time. And the tour fell apart and was canceled / reoriented to more intimate venues, as we have been talking about. So you don't want to extrapolate that, going with the bigger and more powerful company, that can be good or that can be bad. Yeah. And this is against a context, as we know, there are tours that are blowing doors out and there are other tours that are struggling right now. This was not the only one. So how much of this is the touring and economic environment, and how much of it is they put out a record nobody paid attention to and not enough people cared about going to the show?
Right. I mean, that is the question. But the question, is there something that happened? Did the Irving's company drop the ball on something? Did they drop the ball on nudging the label to promote the record to radio? Was there a mistake on the back end that, sort of deep sixed this record?
Yeah. And again, do you run the risk of getting lost when you go to a bigger shop and, Irving Azoff continues to worry about selling a lot of Eagles tickets around the world year in, year out. And fair enough. And they're, that company's managing Harry Styles. Do you go in as a smaller fish and lose the sort of attention and focus and care that you're used to getting? So it sounds like we're going to hear more about this.
Yeah. I'm not on the inside of the booking side of this business, but Q Prime, not as big as Irving's company.
But a power player.
A power player. I mean, how much is the difference in terms of booking is it going to be, really? And especially when you're talking about a guy who was there for you, who helped to build the band.
There clearly is something we don't know.
Yeah.
The question is, are we going to know? Because Pat Carney talks a lot of smack. That is for sure. And is not afraid to go and pick a fight, and is not afraid to, just put his business in the street. He's done this plenty of times. So if he's saying, watch this space, I'm going to be watching.
But it also seems that more often than not, when one of these bands has a longtime manager and then they leave that longtime manager for a bigger name or something, the return is always kind of downhill. It just seems like it never works out.
What's the cause and effect? I mean, that also may be that the reason that you leave your manager is you feel like that's as far as we can go with this person, that, you know, that vision of what the band is has reached its course. That can be fine, but maybe that means your career is slowing down or entering into a downward slope, and now somebody else comes in and they take the hit for that. Obviously, it's case by case. If it means we're ready to take a leap that's bigger and that's why we want to make this change, or things kind of feel like they've run their course and so we got to figure something else out, and maybe that's just the clock is running and you don't stay at that level. It can be indicative of, you know, of either side or a combination of those things.
So the band, the tour, everything up in the air, and we're just keeping our eyes out for the lawsuits to start flying or something. All right. I think that's going to wrap it for music news.
Let's bring up this little survey we got going.
We were talking earlier in the show, if you've been with us, we posted our first random Sound Up Friday poll before the weekend, and the topic was, which artist would you like to see new music from? Certainly something that you probably talk about every so often with your friends. The choices, we narrowed it down for you. The Cure, REM, Talking Heads, no doubt. All of these artists are technically still together, active, or still around and can release new music. Talking Heads are doing events around the anniversary of Stop Making Sense, including one you guys were just telling me about earlier that's coming up in a couple of days here.
Happening later this week in Brooklyn. They just did it in LA. They just did an event at the Pantage Theater where they filmed Stop Making Sense.
Oh, that's fantastic. And The Cure continues. They're playing new material live. I'm not sure we're ever going to get new music from The Cure because he's promised us how many times?
To us, to our face.
Yeah, so Talking Heads doing the events around the anniversary. No doubt playing at Coachella. I don't know what that means in terms of other dates or anything. The Cure is The Cure. Of all of them, they're probably the one that, you know, are closest to being able to.
We know their stuff record. I mean, we know there's something.
Yes.
He told us he's got Disintegration Part 2 ready to go. He's got a solo record, and he played a couple live songs on their last tour.
Oh, they played new songs on the tour.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So I mean, he's teasing.
Yeah. And then REM are really interesting. By the way, Thursday night in New York City, in Brooklyn, the members of Talking Heads will be together for this screening of Stop Making Sense. That same night, REM are being honored at the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Oh,
and
wow.
It will be interesting to see if they will be, presumably that's a thing everybody shows up for.
This is the first time that I have heard that there are actually rumors about the band reforming.
Other than this is the right week. So on our show Wednesday, we will not only reveal the final results of this poll, but we invite you to join us live and talk about any of those 4 artists mentioned or artists that you love that you'd like to see come back together and put out new music. Send us your comments, your audio messages, email us with words or sounds at connect@sounduppod.com, or sign up to join the live podcast taping. Go to sounduppod.com for all the details.
All right, stand by. We've got new music picks for you when we return. Stay right there.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
We're back on Sound Up. And part of the reason that we're the only music podcast that matters is because of interviews like you just heard, and because of the incredible new music that we're going to point you to right now. We do new music picks every week on this first show. So, Alan, you want to jump in? Actually,
you know what? I want Roger to go first because there's one song we both went for. So I want to let you, since I think it's the only one you got, you should tee it up.
I am obsessed with this artist, Raye.
You know, she was on again, right?
Oh, did they rebroadcast the SNL?
Saturday Night Live.
Oh my God. And that
so
is,
good.
If you need to figure out who this artist is, just watch those performances because she is just so unique, and I cannot say enough about her. I mean, she only has one debut album out right now, which came out in 2023, her first full length, which was called 21st Century Blues. But I mean, she's just an artist who will mix hip hop, blues, spoken word, big band, trance, hop, sometimes within the same song.
Like this,
you know, this EP Genesis, which is 4 songs and almost like one complete piece. And the video for it is like this 7-minute mini movie that is just absolutely fantastic. And I just cannot get enough of everything she puts out. Seems to be better than the next thing she does. And I have a feeling she's going to be just one of the biggest and most important artists to come out of recent times. And I'm just so excited about her.
Ray's been winning all the awards in the UK. Is full-fledged, superstar there. And everything sure is teed up right for her here. And this song EP, I don't know what you call it. It is a 3-part suite called Genesis that goes from this sort of spoken word kind of trip hop, sort of a first part, into a more hip hop R&B middle section, then veers into this big band, horns and swing section. A lot of it is dealing with things that we've talked a lot about. Anxiety, imposter syndrome, self-doubt. It's a sort of a psychological journey. It keeps coming back and landing on this idea of let there be light. It's this kind of finding your way through the darkness. So there's the full, what's really interesting is there's the full 7-minute, all 3 parts, but then it's also broken out into each of the 3 parts separately, I guess, depending which playlist you want to put it on, that these very different moods, you can section them out and, cut and paste as necessary, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. So Roger, by the time I got in to put my list here and saw that you had gone for it, I said, I will double up on that.
She just blows me away, everything she does.
So I got 2 more to throw in on top of that, though. That's the one. The one is from another Raye, who I know Roger also has very strong feelings about, which is a new song from Raye LaMontagne.
Indeed.
His first new music in about 4 years, now on his own label. And the song is called Step Into Your Power. And it's that sort of, what do you say, 70s acoustic soul. There's a little bit of Joe Cocker. There's a little bit of Stephen Stills. There's a little bit of Bill Withers. It's those touch points that he has had. Yeah. But a very strong, powerful song. And I'm excited that there'll be new Raye LaMontagne music, that there's an album coming. A guy who self-sabotaged enough that he never got to the places that he could, partly by being like the least verbal person I've ever met and being unwilling to do any press or anything. But I got to say this. I was looking for information for this, anything about this song, looking around for Raye LaMontagne. Raye LaMontagne lives in Western Massachusetts. I did a New York Times piece where I drove up and met him. This is always a favorite story from our friend Madison Vane, who is also a big Raye LaMontagne fan. I met him at the local, gas station, restaurant, general store, that's the one in town where you could order a special thing called the Quesadilla. His preferred toppings on the quesadilla, they actually named for him. So, but meantime, he has this house that he rehabbed with his wife, who's an artist up there, which they just sold for $4.5 million. The biggest real estate transaction in that part of the state of all time. So Raye ain't got to worry too much about selling the records right now. He's got a housing thing going that's working for him. It's pretty... they're in the middle of nowhere, but I guess it's a big sprawling house and they did a big deal. So Raye LaMontagne, Step Into Your Power. And then the third pick, I don't know really much at all about Alfie Templeton, who is a Brit who sort of does what seems to be kind of half jokey dance R&B stuff, but it's, seems very sort of meme-ish. But he has a new song called Just a Dance that he did with Nile Rodgers. And it is very Nile chic, classic sound. And this almost made me think of like a Sparks song where is this kind of spoof and just silly, goofy, but it's done really well. So it actually sounds like what a song like that would sound like. So he's got a little bit of a dopey accent that he leans into, but the song's a good song. And hearing Nile play those chunk rhythm parts again, I'm always going to fall for it. So my 3, Genesis parts 1, 2, and 3 from Raye, Step Into Your Power by Raye LaMontagne, and Alfie Templeton and Nile Rodgers, Just a Dance.
All excellent. I'll just toss mine in here at the end. A couple I have. Illuminati Hotties. Power is the name of the new record, out September 22nd. Their 3rd record only. Sarah Tudson. Back at it with the Illuminati Hotties. Also, one of my longtime faves, Jaime XX, is back, longtime DJ, producer, 1/3 of The XX, who he writes for and produces for not only for his group, but also for the other two artists in the group. Jaime works with them as well. But Treat Each Other Right is the second single from In Waves, the next album coming from Jaime XX, August 22nd. And finally, a band that my daughter and I share a big love for, because when she was like 8 is when they first, Pretty Fly for a White Guy was out when she was 8. And that cemented her love. The Offspring have Make It All Right. A new album called Supercharged is out on my birthday, October 11th.
God, we're getting October release dates announced.
Well, doesn't it seem like people are pushing them? Like they put out a record and then they don't put, the single, and then they don't put out a record for like 5 months. That seems weird. I mean, come on, it's June. How do you not put out a record until October?
They'll do 2 more singles between now and then, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all going to happen. Meantime, I've loved I'm sure you followed the Ed Sheeran Offspring love fest that's been going on.
Yeah, what?
I guess he's a huge fan. I guess he, like your daughter, he grew up on them. He has an Offspring tattoo. He got up and played with them at which festival? At Ohana or at one of them?
No, I didn't see that. Oh,
yeah. Apparently, Ed Sheeran Offspring super fan, and like lived his dream and got up on stage and played with them.
Well, the fact that those guys can still put out music that sounds as rockin' as this does, I'm happy. All is right with the world for me. All right. I think we've covered everything we need to cover. Let's wrap this baby up.
You can head on over to sounduppod.com to find out how you can be a part of our live Sound Up podcast taping. Email us your thoughts, write them down, or put them in a voicemail and send them off to connect@sounduppod.com.
Don't forget, too, to give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you listen to Sound Up on. And we will see you next time round here on Sound Up.
Sound Up is hosted by Mark Goodman and Alan Light, produced by Roger Coletti, distributed by Revolver Podcasts. Get Sound Up on Pandora Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. To be a part of the show, email us at connect@sounduppod.com. Sound Up theme music is by Smile from Tokyo. We'll see you next time right here on Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light.